Good morning, everyone. Today, we're going to take a quick look at how the United States went from being a collection of British colonies to an independent nation with its own constitution and government. Let's start in the 17th century, when settlers from Great Britain and other parts of Europe began arriving in North America. Why did they come? Mostly for two reasons: freedom, especially religious freedom, and opportunity. At that time, European societies were very rigid. If you were born into the lower class, you usually stayed there for life. The American colonies offered something different: a chance to own land, start a business, and live more equally with others. Now fast forward a bit. The colonies grew, and the settlers became more independent in the way they lived and worked. But they were still under British rule. And here's where tension began. The settlers wanted to make their own decisions, especially when it came to money and politics. The British king, however, expected them to follow British laws and pay British taxes, even though they had no representatives in the British Parliament. This conflict came to a head when the king imposed heavy taxes on items like stamps, sugar, and tea. The settlers protested, and in response, the king sent British troops to enforce his rules. This sparked the War for Independence in 1775. A year later, on July 4, 1776, colonial leaders signed the Declaration of Independence, stating clearly why they wanted to break away from Britain. The war dragged on for several more years, but in 1783, the Americans finally won their freedom. But gaining independence was just the beginning. The real question now was, how should this new nation be governed? At first, they were wary of creating a strong central government. After all, they had just fought a war against one. So they tried a system where state governments had most of the power, but it didn't work well. In 1787, a group of leaders met to write a new plan. They decided on a republic, where leaders are elected rather than born into power, and a democracy, based on the idea that all men are equal, and government should represent the people. The result was the United States Constitution, adopted in 1789, which remains the foundation of the US government today. One of its key features is federalism, a balance of power between state and national governments. Before we wrap up, I want to mention George Washington, one of the most important figures in this era. As a general during the war, he broke traditional rules of warfare. For example, in 1776, while the British were resting during the winter holidays, Washington led a surprise attack by crossing the Delaware River on Christmas night, winning the Battle of Trenton, a major turning point. After the war, Washington became the first president of the United States, setting many traditions that continue to this day. So in just a few decades, the American colonies transformed from scattered settlements into a united country with a bold new vision of freedom and self-government. That's all for today. Make sure to review the Declaration of Independence and Constitution for next class. We'll be digging into their key ideas. See you then.